All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to the basement episodes. So, I watched Tiger King, just like everybody else. Check it out on Netflix. Solid documentary. And I've been listening to everybody's take on it, and a lot of people regarding Joe Exotic, you hear him say, like, how does it even happen? How does it get to that point? And the answer is meth. Lots and lots of meth. You don't end up in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, married to two dudes with 250 tigers without interstellar levels of meth use. Most meth situations would have bottomed out years before that, but Joe had figured out how to make $100,000 on for every tiger cub that. So it just was a meth situation that went way, way too long. My thoughts on Joe, it's like you can't help but like the guy a little bit. And I don't know if he's in jail for the right reason, but after the whole thing is said and done, and you get all the information, it's like you probably should spend in jail some time in jail for something, Joe, right? You made a business out of keeping amazingly cool things in cages while you just lived your best life shooting, dating straight guys, blowing stuff up, making your little show, while all your animals are sitting going, this sucks. This sucks bad. This monkey that's high on meth with a gun keeps us in these cages, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm depressed, really depressed. And I think it just got away from Joe Exotic. I think that he realized when he got in that car accident, he got his first tiger cub, and he goes, oh my God, this is amazing. One, it's adorable. Holy crap, look at this thing. You know, I wanted a tiger cub after seeing them sit there, and the tiger's like, you know? So he gets in the car accident, gets a tiger cub, makes him feel a little better. He's kind of can't be the easiest thing to be a gay dude in Oklahoma. So all of a sudden, kind of ugly too. He's not the best looking dude, but you're kind of an ugly, methed out gay dude in Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden you got this baby tiger, and it's attracting all these people over to you. Oh yeah, this is my baby tiger. But then all of a sudden it's a year down the road, the thing weighs 800 pounds, and you got to just start the whole thing over. Fast forward a couple decades, and you got to go to jail, Joe, for a little while. I'm sorry. Then there's that other guy, Doc Antle, who might be scarier than Joe in a way. He's not right out there in the open with his scariness. Joe's out there like, yeah, look at my face, meth, baby. I got a gun, I got meth, I got my husbands, I got 250 tigers. Yeehaw, but Doc's horrifying in a very different way. Like, Joe and Doc are both, I think, very dangerous, but in totally separate type of ways. Like, Joe, he's dangerous in the way of, like, he might, like, accidentally shoot your kid drunk at a barbecue. But it would be an accident. Sad, but an accident. Doc would like steal your kid, or convince your kid to come and live with them, and then all of a sudden he'd put your kid in a bird cage, and he'd take his long creepy white ponytail and like poke him with it. That's how I feel. That's, I think, the difference between Joe and Doc are. It's like anybody with that long of a white ponytail, I don't know, you got to be suspicious of that. I've always thought that. The thought of that Doc Antle guy at the end of the night when he's got all of his like weird mistresses that are dressed up in tigers, when he takes his ponytail out at the end of the night and shakes, I'm sure, I don't know, even just the thought of that makes my whole body wince up. And it seems like both of them, it's kind of a similar personality. They just like to collect, and they just like to collect things. Tigers, humans, girls, women, dudes, meth. Just they're similar personalities. I actually met a guy. I grew up in Grand Junction, most of you know that, and there was a guy like this in Grand Junction. He's still alive, but I can't remember. I think through one of my friends they knew this guy, and they were like, yeah, this guy, his name's Bob. This guy, Crazy Bob's got these two serval cats, and they invited us over for 4th of July. Do you want to come with us? So I was like, yeah, sure. I was probably in like either middle school or like early high school, but pretty young. And so we go over to this guy's Bob's house, and he lives close to, there's a big mountain called the Monument, and he lived out there, had like a big chunk of land. So we go out there for a 4th of July party, and this guy Bob is pretty much exactly the same. I mean, he's not, he doesn't have like, the extent of the people in this documentary, but we get to this land, he's just this wily, crazy dude. And he goes, yeah, come look at these servals. And he opens this little tiny garage, and and they're right there, these giant cats. And if you even took a step near them, they'd hiss at you, and it was no joke. It wasn't the type like in these documentaries where the tiger comes up to the cage and is like, pet me, and rubs his head against it. These were not tame at all. And it's like, he just was like, yeah, check them out. And that's like, for maybe like a second or two, it's cool. But after a few minutes, how could you live with yourself knowing that, yeah, I got these two giant cats, and they can, in real life, they would run and jump and catch things and live this insane, cool life. But instead of all that, I think I'm just going to keep them in these little tiny pee and poop covered cages so I can look at them. There's a selfishness that comes across with these big cat people that you're like, yeah, I mean, it's cool, and I'm sure having a little baby tiger's nice to pat on the head when you're lonely, but this is sad. This is just sad. Sad stuff. And then we'll get into Carole Baskin. What a character. And that's the other thing. I'm so surprised. Usually when you put together a documentary like this, there's one important character of the documentary that chooses, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this. And they're like, we reached out for comment and they declined. But with this one, every single needed person was like, yeah, not only will I do an interview, you can follow me into my home and film whatever you want. Every single part of this story, they were like, yeah, we have film footage of it. There's nothing left to just be like, yeah, trust us on this one. It's like, nah, here's the audio recording. It was almost, I don't know how I'll watch another documentary and not be spoiled. It's like, oh, well, in Tiger King, they had that part from 20 years ago that's important to the story. They had that part in HD footage. We got to watch it. But old Carole Baskin, she should be a whole nother 5-part documentary. So Carole Baskin is Joe Exotic's big rival, right? And Joe Exotic is doing at least a number of years in prison for hiring a hitman. My personal opinion is that was never really going to happen. And he just had the, I'm going to kill that bitch someday attitude. And finally, though, he got around sketchy enough dudes that were like, yeah, let's help him put this together, at least enough to get ourselves out of trouble. But just watch the documentary. But Carole Baskin, so her third husband, she's on her 4th husband right now. And her third husband disappeared 20 years ago or something, totally disappeared, nothing has ever, come out about the case or anything. And pretty much everyone that knew them thinks Carole killed her husband and fed him to the tigers. That's, again, this pushes this documentary just above, over the edge of being from like, yeah, this is pretty cool to like, wow, this is really good, is how about that as a subplot? Not only do you have the character of Joe Exotic, the gay, gun-toting, mullet-wearing, full-blown methed-out psychopath, strong character already. And not only do you have Doc Antle, the creepy, 4-foot-long white ponytail, collects women, dresses them up as tigers, most likely euthanizes the tigers in a gas chamber. Again, pretty interesting character. Not only do you have those two, you have Carole Baskin that most likely fed her third husband to tigers. She's like, what? So that's the big theory, right? Everybody that watches it, you leave by thinking, okay, she definitely fed this man, her husband, to tigers. Her husband's friends, they have them as interviews. Of course they do. Everyone agreed to do the interviews. Carole Baskin's third husband's friends were like, yeah, he said that she's totally nuts and he's going to ask for a divorce. That's the last time that I saw him. And then all of the husbands that was possibly fed to tigers, all of his kids, all the daughters were like, yeah, we definitely think it's Carole. And then Carole with her just psycho eyes. She's always wearing one of those flower headbands and just doing this weird thing with her eyes like, I'm not completely psycho. It's like, Carole, my theory on Carole Baskin, so everyone, like I said, their theory is that she killed her husband and fed it to tigers. I have maybe a possible different theory. I think it's a good chance that after hanging out with Carole for an extended period of time that he fed himself to tigers. I think that's a very good possibility. She was probably sitting there on the couch just doing her weird eye thing, being like, yeah, so I'm Carole Baskin. And he's just sitting there going, I can't take this anymore. I'll be right back. And he just went out, climbed up the fence, and just did a beautiful swan dive. Goodbye, cruel century and Carole Baskin. That's a great name, too, just like fucking Carole Baskin. I've been saying that and just blaming anything on it. Like, anytime the coronavirus numbers goes up, I'm just like, Carole Baskin. Or I accidentally undercooked a chicken breast yesterday, but I had to put it back on. But I cut into it and saw there was undercooked, and I was like, God damn it, Carole Baskin. You really got me. But what a documentary. Check it out. Another crazy story I saw is there's the train engineer in LA. So they pulled up huge Navy ships, one or two out in front of New York and one in front of LA to help, add more hospital beds for this coronavirus disaster. And a train engineer in LA thought that it was a government plot for martial law or whatever. So he thought that he was going to put the train at full speed. Once the tracks ended, have enough speed to keep going just on ground, go through all these fences and stuff all the way out and crash his train into the ship. And he didn't make it very far at all. It just, there was no tracks, it just went through some trees and some dirt and a couple fences and then came to a stop. They arrested him, and when I questioned him, he was saying that I had to. The whole world is watching, and the ship isn't what they're telling us it is, and he's looking at 20 years. I don't know. It's got to be like they interviewed his friend, and the friend's like, he's got this family. He's smart enough to know there's no way that the train would ever make it to the ship. And so his friend was like almost crying, being like, I don't know why he would do that. It doesn't make any sense. It's got to be a psychological break of some kind, but I don't know. There's something a little funny about someone being like, all right, I'm going to take down the Navy ship with the train, full speed ahead. And then the tracks end and it just kind of bottoms out and comes to a stop nowhere near the boat. And he's just like, well, that didn't work out. Now I'm just facing 20 years because the train is 19 feet off the tracks. Not a good idea. That one did not work out well. So please just don't go nuts during this coronavirus time. Don't lose it where you are trying to take down a Navy ship with a train. That's one of the scariest parts of that whole story is it's like it wasn't some loony that hijacked the train and was like, I'm doing it. This was the engineer. Something weird about that. Anyway, I hope you're doing well, everybody. Check out Tiger King. I'll see you soon. Why? Stavin' why? Last question.